Hello and welcome to the Toon Under podcast. A very, very happy Toon Under podcast. Everybody associated with Newcastle United is happy at the moment. I am Jack in Brisbane. I've got Craig in Mackay. We're here to talk about Newcastle's victory at the Emirates Stadium. Only the second time ever that Newcastle have won at that stadium. First time since 2010 when Big Andy Carroll scored his goal. In the subsequent 15 years, there's been 1-0 draw there, and every other game Arsenal have won. And it's a first home defeat of the season for Arsenal. Newcastle are knocking records over this season. 2-0 win, Craig, in the first leg. The next game is at St James's Park next month. How do you feel about it?
Absolutely out of the moon with that one. I predicted a loss, to be honest. I know yours truly did predict the 2-0 win, so congratulations on that one. I expect it would get beat, but only by a slender margin, and take it back to St James's with something to fight for.
Yeah, I was confident. And it was based on Arsenal's recent form, which has not been great. Their attack has not been the best, and they were without Saka, obviously, for this one. And Nwaneri, who came in for Saka, he got injured. He scored against Brighton, and then he got injured as well. But they've laboured a little bit. They've had a few struggles going forward. They've got a strong defence, but with our form, I was confident. I don't usually get score predictions right, so maybe I should have put some money on that one. But yeah, it was a good prediction from me. I did say it was going to be 2-0. It was 2-0. We're going to talk about the ins and outs of the game in a moment, but where do you think this win ranks in the list of Eddie Howe's victories as Newcastle manager? Bearing in mind this is his third win away from home over a Big Six club in the last week or so.
This, as far as I'm concerned, is up there. You know, when the Champions League season had to beat Brighton just to be on the edge of Champions League qualification. That, to me, is as important as this one, if not even that Leicester game where we had to get anything for a point, purely on the fact that the record there, as you stated, was absolutely abysmal. You were probably one of the very few fans around there that expected us to get something out of the game. So again, kudos to you on that one. But this was monumental. This is up there with the biggest and the best results of Eddie Howe's tenure at the club.
Yeah, I was thinking about his big wins. Obviously PSG, which I don't know if that'll ever be beaten. Maybe if we win a trophy, it might. But yeah, like that's a good comparison with the Brighton. Actually, that's a good one. We haven't been very good away from home against the big teams since Eddie got there, and no club is really very good away from home against the big teams comparatively because they're strong teams and it's hard to get results there. I don't really think you can really class Man United and Spurs at the moment as Big Six clubs. They're certainly not in the Big Six, but Arsenal definitely are. They're up there. They are in a title challenge, even though they're a bit behind Liverpool at the moment. It was shades of maybe 2001, 2002 when we beat Arsenal at Highbury and then we beat Leeds. And in terms of like away games, a run of away games against strong opposition, or on paper strong opposition that we've beaten. I know this was a cup competition, but that's kind of what it put my mind back to a little bit. Do you remember the last time we were in the Carabao Cup semi-final against Southampton and we won that one 1-0, I think it was, away, wasn't it?
Well. Joe Linton got it with an Isak assist. I'm sure it was I.
Yeah, and it's a bit of a different feel this time, isn't it? Just because of the nature that it is Arsenal and it's not Southampton.
Yeah, big time. The parallels are totally different between the two clubs. Arsenal have world-class players. Southampton back then had a few average players at best. But yeah, the parallels are totally different, and it's on another level, this win, compared to that one.
And both teams went full strength for this team, so that shows just what the managers. Obviously, we knew we would because we're prioritizing this and we're desperate to win a trophy. Arsenal is still in other competitions, including the Champions League. Was there any surprises for you to see Willock in for Bruno and Botman starting his second game in 4 days in for Shaw, who were both suspended?
I was a little bit dubious to who would step in to replace Bruno with him being suspended. It would have either been Willock, Longstaff, or Miley, with Miley getting the last shot of all three due to his lack of game time. But Willock, with his running on the ball, was always going to be important to us. He didn't have the most effective game, but he still put his weight around. Longstaff, he is a totally different type of player to Bruno. But if you mold the team around Tonali and get him to push forward, then maybe he could have had a bit more of an impact. But I think Eddie got that decision spot on. And the big call to have Botman starting his second game in, what was it, 72 hours after 10 months off was a huge, huge bold call, because I think everybody was maybe expecting Kelly to come in. Because nobody expected Bruno to be able Botman to be able to come in and do the 90 plus minutes at Spurs, let alone then come and do another 90 minutes against Arsenal. That was absolutely phenomenal. It shows what kind of engine he's got on him, considering the timeout he's had.
It does, yeah. And Eddie was asked about Botman before the Spurs game, and he said, "Look, if he's in the squad and if he's on the pitch, then it's because he's ready." So I think he'd play a part in 3 under-21 games. So
Yeah.
Eddie is traditionally very cautious when it comes to bringing players back in, and he doesn't want to be rushing players back from injury if there's no need to. But he's obviously determined that Botman is the right call for these 2 games. He's been playing slightly out of position on the right-hand side as well. He prefers the left usually. We'll talk a bit more about Botman later. But yeah, I was surprised to see him start as well. I thought Kelly might have a chance of getting a game. But it just shows you Eddie was really going for this with the strongest possible team. Longstaff he hasn't fallen out of favour as much as just he's Tonali and Bruno and Joelinton are the midfield now, and so it'll depend on what game they're not available for who steps in. And I know Eddie really likes Willock as well, and he's trying to get his fitness up. But I was a bit surprised that Longstaff didn't start as well, considering how well he played against Arsenal when we played them in the league. But yeah, it's nice to have these options, isn't it? This time last season, we had nobody. We had Bruno, Miley, and Longstaff playing all of those games at this time of year last season. And Arsenal for this one I think they made 4 changes. But if you look at their teams for the Brighton game, which was at the last weekend, and this game, they actually had a stronger team out for this game. They had Havertz back and Martinelli came in. So I think Arsenal were going for this. Arteta really wanted this, and we just did a job on them, and it was good to see 2 teams playing full strength teams in this competition, because it's been a little bit devalued up until recently, and recently it seems to have got a bit more prestige back about it, and obviously, or maybe it's just that we're doing well in it. It feels that way, but it's definitely not big clubs playing their reserves anymore, is it, in this competition?
Not anymore, not when you get into these stages. I still think it's a bit of a farce that certain clubs get a bye from, is it the 3rd round? That's an absolute joke. But yeah, you're starting to get some clubs knowing that it is a gateway to Europe. And because that top 8 now, rather than top 6, is a lot more congested than it ever has been, the Carabao Cup could be the only success that you have of getting in Europe. And that's exactly one of the paths we're taking. We've taken it seriously since day one. And we will continue to do so right until we're no longer in it or we've won it,
Yeah, and if we can win it, oh my God, I can't even just that thought,
Yeah.
Sends me a bit weak at the knees. The first half then, so the first 20 minutes or so were quite even. Both teams had a couple of efforts. Then Arsenal started to get on top a little bit, I'd say, for maybe about 10 minutes or so. And then we hit them with a real Route 1 throwback type of goal. It was just a free kick forward from Dubravka. Botman won the header. Murphy was there to knock it on towards Isak, who put it in the net. Nice finish. Some numbers. This was Murphy's 7th assist of the season and his 5th assist in his last 9 games since he broke into the team, starting with the Liverpool game. That's when he started starting games again. Isak's 10th goal in his last 9 games. Brentford in the Cup was the only game he hasn't scored in. And he hit the half century of goals for Newcastle, which he's done in 89 games, which is 5 games less than a certain Alan Shearer, who got to 50 goals. He got to 50 goals in 94 games. So we're going to talk about him a bit more in a minute as well, but this shows what a talent we have in our hands. And I was saying the other day in the chat, we used to have Marlon Harewood and Emmanuel Riviere up front, and that's not actually that long ago. So it's actually strange to actually think about the fact that we've probably got what is probably the best all-round striker in the world, which is absolutely ridiculous.
I was just about to say that. Yeah, he is. And earlier on the day, I just shared some of the FBref stats, comparing with other Premier League strikers, and he is head and shoulders above them in pretty much every measurable category you can think of. He's absolutely phenomenal. He is the best striker in world football right now, and he plays for Newcastle United. I never thought I'd say that, not for a good while anyway, but he is, and we have him. And long may he be at this club wearing that number 14 shirt. Hope he gets number 9 shirt next season, to be honest. That would be the way to go. But yeah, what a player he is. And yeah, here's a quick question for you. I actually thought about this earlier on. If you had to pick both players in their prime, so Isak right now or Shearer in their prime, you got to pick one to start the next match, who would you pick?
Yeah, that's a hard question, isn't it?
It is.
I think at the minute you'd have to say Isak, just because it depends how deep you want to go. But Isak works in this system, his pressing and what he does. But Shearer's Shearer, so I think them two together would be pretty devastating. But the game's probably moved on a bit from even when Shearer was there. Shearer could probably still do a job now, to be fair, even though he can't walk. He can still play football. But yeah, Isak was just absolutely, he was all over in this game, and he started bringing more to his game recently. He's had more assists this season, but he's been doing things like the pass he made for Lewis Hall in the Man United game was really good. Like, he dropped deep, and it was a bit like what Kane does. He picked the ball up, played a through ball. He did another pass. I can't remember the scenario, but he did one against Spurs as well, where it was like he's improving his all-round game. And like you said, those stats that you shared earlier, he's becoming a real all-round striker, and he doesn't have any actual weaknesses in his game, really. The media have been enjoying linking Isak with Arsenal over the last few weeks, and it's been a really strange situation with him this season, because this speculation has been going on all season, and it was before the Chelsea game back in October where these stories started coming out about his contract, and we wanted to give him a new contract, and we didn't want to give him one, and it was all the press started getting a bit interested in this, and then they asked Eddie Howe about it in his press conference before the Chelsea game, and Eddie just said he's got 3.5 years left on his contract. He basically said he needs to start playing better as well, because he hadn't actually been playing that well up to that point. So I don't know if that was a bit of mischief making at that time, because Chelsea were interested in the summer. But there's been this talk, and you've had the talking heads on Sky Sports coming and saying things and linking him with moves away. I think my view is that if he does go eventually, it'll be on our terms, and it'll be to one of Europe's most successful clubs and one of Europe's biggest clubs, which Arsenal are obviously not right now. So I'm not sure Arsenal could afford Isak, even if he would want to go, which I don't know if he would. There's not. I know there's a gap in terms of resources, and we've got to try and bridge that, but there's not that much gap in terms of quality between the squads. If you look at them on paper, they've got a bit more depth probably, but in terms of a starting lineup, and we've proven that we've beaten them twice this season.
Mm-hmm.
I know, Craig, you obviously don't want us to sell Isak or even consider that, but what have you made of all of this noise around him since October, and especially recently in the run up to this game in the January transfer window?
Personally, I think it's pathetic, because you've got players that ex-players now, Gary Neville and Jamie Carragher, who are talking about how Real Madrid's bid for Trent Alexander-Arnold, how it was disrespectful for everything like that. Yet they're peddling Isak to every single club out there. Every other minute, they're not talking about their own clubs. It's okay for them to do that about somebody else, but when it comes to their own, no, you can't be doing that. Disrespectful. I think it is an honour that our players are being linked with such a high move away, because it shows the quality of the player. But just let him do his stuff on the pitch. Let the football do the talking. And if a transfer does come around, because he's not going to stay at Newcastle for his entire career, as much as I'd like to, that's just being realistic. When he does go, like you say, will be on our terms, and it will be for a British transfer record, maybe even a world transfer record, who knows. But yeah, I think it's every other player, ex-player, every put it out there is basically saying, yeah, Arsenal need to sign him. Arsenal need to buy him. Arsenal don't have the funds to buy him. I don't think any Premier League club has the funds to buy him. You got to look at how slow the transfer market has already started this January. There's very little clubs buying already. Yes, it will pick up towards the end of the window, but no one's going to be able to fork out, because what it will be north of 150 million as far as I'm concerned when he does go. And who's going to pay that? I mean, that's 3 times what City paid for Haaland, effectively, which is absolutely bonkers when you think about it. But will Isak want to go in the summer? Maybe, if we don't get any form of European football. So far, it's looking like that could be pretty much nailed on with league form. And hopefully we can win the cup. Then we've got European football guaranteed, regardless of what happens with the league. So see what happens with that. I don't think Isak will go. I think he'll have another year, then contemplate his future. And I think maybe that'll be the same with Bruno as well.
Isak's never shown any indication that he is interested in leaving up to this point. He's been here for 2.5 years. And like I said, he's got 3.5 years left on his contract. Yeah. You never know what players are thinking as well. He's on the road to legend status already, and he's only just turned 25 in September. So, you know, Shearer was older than Isak when he hit his 50 goals. And I know he scored a lot of goals when he got past 30 as well. And the team was set up around Shearer. And, you know, it was different because he was at his hometown club and all that sort of stuff. So we don't know what Isak's ambitions might be. I think the challenge for us is, can we progress at the same rate that he is? Can we become one of the Champions League clubs? Can we challenge for titles in his career? Can we do that? Can we win trophies? You know, like it won't be lost on him and Bruno and anyone else how amazing it would be and the status that they would have if they managed to win a trophy for Newcastle. And it's obviously somewhere he's enjoying playing. He's got a good manager. He's starting every game at the moment. So there's a lot of reasons why he would want to stay right now. I don't think it's realistic that he might go in January at all, because I just don't think anyone's got the money, and you tend not to see moves like that in January. Plus, we're on a good run of form as well. In the summer, maybe. I was thinking earlier this season when we were struggling and when Arsenal were near the top, maybe, you know, next summer that it would be a move that makes sense for him because it would be a step up. But, you know, we've stepped up as a club, as a team since then, and we're on the right track. He'll want to see that the ambition remains there as well, and that we can push. And if he does go, maybe Real Madrid, I don't know, Bayern Munich, somebody like that, somebody who's got a chance of challenging for the Champions League, because that's how good he is. But it does depend, like I said, on what he thinks. But I don't think we're in any danger at this point of losing him. And, no. You know, to see him show up in a game like that, and the narrative was around, you know, showing Arsenal what they're missing. Like, it's not realistic now that he would go to Arsenal anyway. They might as well say showing what Ipswich are missing, you know, when we scored a hat-trick against them, because I think there's the same level of realistic chance of that move happening anytime soon, you know. So he's just an absolute joy to watch, and it's difficult to imagine this when we were struggling. You know, even when Eddie came in, we had Callum Wilson, but Isak's a totally different level, isn't he? He's one of the best players in the world, which is, like, keep saying, crazy that he plays for Newcastle.
Yeah, as good as Wilson is on his day, Isak, again, he's just levels above now, isn't he? There was a time when they were probably on par with each other, but now Isak has just raised his game to levels that, as we've just said, not many other players in world football are anywhere close to right now. And people say, yeah, he's scoring against the likes of Ipswich or whatever, and their teams that have only just come up. You can only beat the teams that are in front of you. But he's also scored against Spurs. He scored against Man United. He scored against Arsenal. He scored the winner against Arsenal in the reverse fixture, St. James's. He scored against Chelsea at Stamford Bridge. So it's not like he's just scoring lots of goals against the shit teams. He's bagging them in against the biggest and best as well. So his all-round game, as mentioned, is superb. And the club and himself are reaping the rewards for it.
Yeah, and he scores all different types of goals. If anyone's watched that video of the 93 goals Newcastle scored in 2024, should have been on Pornhub, like we were saying. It was pretty nice viewing for 45 minutes. But yeah, he's just an absolute joy to watch. He came off and apparently he had a little hamstring strain, so hopefully he's going to get a rest against Bromley and he'll be back for Wolves in a week's time. Second half, we came out, and then within 6 minutes, it was 2-0. It was a really nice passing move through the midfield. Came to Isak, who had a shot There was a parry by the keeper, and there was Anthony Gordon to stab it home. Anthony Gordon has started scoring goals again. Since the start of last season, he's played 18 games against the big 6 clubs, and he's got 16 goal involvements in those games. Goals or assists.
That's stupidly good, that.
He was phenomenal last season, and I think his form struggled. He was struggling for form in the early part of this season. I don't think he was fit, and I think he had a disappointing time with England. There was that talk about potentially him being sold to Liverpool, and it does seem that there was something in that when we were desperate to raise funds. So, but it seems now, Craig, doesn't it, that his head's back in the right place, his fitness is back where it needs to be. He's scoring goals. He is such an asset to this team, isn't he?
He is, and his link-up play with Isak is almost telepathic at times as well. It's so good. But yeah, when he's on form, he's bombing down that left-hand side. There's not many defenders which are capable of containing him for 90 minutes, as shown in the last few games. He does miss the odd sitter every now and again, but I guarantee you what he misses up, he makes up in goals and assists on that one. You predicted last season, didn't you, that he would get 20 goals and assists combined?
Yeah, I said he would get double figures for goals and assists, so at least 10 goals and at least 10 assists, and he did do that. Yeah,
he did. Yeah, I think he exceeded that as well, if I remember rightly. But he could, if he knuckles down like he has started the last few games, could get close to that again. There's no reason as to why he can't, especially the way Isak's bagging him in for assists and everything as well. And if he stays fit, which he normally does, he's normally very good at staying injury free. Just needs to keep up the match fitness type thing, and hopefully he can start banging them in the same consistency as what Big Dog is.
He's benefiting from having his place on the left, isn't he? And I know that creates a bit of a block for Harvey Barnes, who is a good player in his own right, but if that's Gordon's favoured position and he's better there, like he looks happier, he can cut inside, and he's scoring goals from that position. So Harvey Barnes is unlucky that he got injured when he did. And I was looking at some stats for Gordon. The season that he signed for us in that January, he only played in 16 games in the Premier League after he signed, and he didn't complete 90 minutes, so he didn't actually finish a game at all that season. So there was no guarantees when we signed Harvey Barnes that Gordon was going to do what he did, with the form that he was in on the left-hand side. And then Barnes got injured, and then he struggled to get back in. But he's a useful player to have off the bench. But you feel for someone who's that good, who's got such a good output, when they've got someone like Anthony Gordon in front of them who you just can't displace him. I think Barnes will get a game on the weekend, which will be good for him against Bromley.
Yeah.
But it's a hard place to be for a 27-year-old who is easily good enough to play in the Premier League for a good team. And it's good for us because we've got that competition. But yeah, it's a tough gig for Harvey Barnes, but he just can't get in ahead of Anthony Gordon at the moment. The rest of this game was all about Newcastle's defending. So we made some subs. We decided it was a tactical decision to concede possession. And we basically said to Arsenal, come and break us down then. And by the 75th minute, we went into a 5-5-0 formation. We didn't have any striker after Isak came off and then Gordon came off. So it was really nervy. It was nervy. They had a lot of the ball. There was a lot of passes around the box. But it worked, Craig, didn't it? We stood strong and we defended the box magnificently. Bodies were on the line. And the two centre-backs were colossal, absolutely colossal. We've touched on Sven Botman before. Over to you to talk about Sven Botman if you want, and Dan Burn, who was also an absolute rock in this game at the back.
Dan Burn, as far as I'm concerned, if it wasn't for Isak's goals, would probably be contender for player of the season right now. He has been a man-mountain of a defender. He's had a lot of criticism last season. Some of it maybe rightly so. Maybe not to the extent that some people are digging an early grave for him. But he has come out and he has shown he is a leader amongst men on that pitch. He wore the captain's armband today in the absence of Bruno. And I thought he had the team gelled up. They were all fired up to go. And his defending, whether it be head, whether he's on the floor, clearing it with his legs, sliding tackles, whatever it would be, dishing out orders, he's just been absolutely superb. I just wish he'd score a few more. With being 6'7", you'd expect him to get a bit more in, but he's been absolutely amazing. And big Botman coming back in, I genuinely, if you would have told me you missed 10 months with an ACL injury, and this is only his second game back, and he played his other one 72 hours ago, I genuinely wouldn't believe you. It was just absolutely superb. As mentioned earlier on, he's got one hell of an engine on him, but he is also so football smart. It's unreal. His brain is one step ahead of every attacker out there. And yes, he's a little bit lacking in pace, but what he lacks in pace is the way he switches on ahead of everybody else is second to none. It is so good to have him back. And the Rolls Royce, he went away for his service and he's come back as good as new.
Some of his passing as well, we've missed that. Those raking left-footed passes, diagonals, absolutely amazing to watch. It'll be really interesting to see who plays when Fabian Schär's back, because he's obviously gonna play, and Fabian Schär. So it will be very interesting to see if it's Botman or Burn. Burn does not deserve to be dropped whatsoever, like you said. So yeah, Burn has been magnificent this season, and Eddie name checked him as well in his press conference. I think Andy Sixsmith asked a question, and he said about Burn, and he said he's been better than we thought he would be. You know, he's been absolutely amazing. So I think last season he struggled with his pace when he was at left back, especially, and he was caught out a bit. But he's made for these kind of defending your box, backs to the wall, blocking, which is what today's game needed, and he's made for that, and he stood up like he always does, and he's been an absolutely incredible signing for 13 million it was, and hopefully we're going to get a few more years out of him. Let's talk about Martin Dubravka. He was in tears at the end of the game. It looks like he's going to be going to Saudi Arabia. He's been a really big part of this good run, and Eddie was very clear afterwards that he doesn't want to lose Dubravka, but he was said similar things about Chris Wood and Shelby before they left. Eddie's always going to say that, but I think there's an acceptance that it probably makes sense for Dubravka and the club in the medium and long term, if he's got a good offer from Saudi, for him to go, even though it might cause us a bit of a short-term headache. He signed 7 years ago, and in January 2018, he's made 171 appearances for the club in that time. Obviously, everyone remembers his debut against Man United. He's had his ups and downs, and he had his little flirtation with Man United, which didn't go down well. And then last season, when he came back in when Pope was injured, he didn't play well, and he was getting beaten and conceding a lot of goals. But he's only conceded one goal recently in this run for us. So if this is it for Martin Dubravka, Craig, how do you think he'll be remembered in future years? And do you think it's a risk to be contemplating selling him right now? Because it does look like he's definitely off, judging by his reaction at the end of the game.
Yeah, I think he's gone. I think that's inevitable. In the transfer window pod we've done a week or so ago, we did touch on Dubravka leaving, but in a arranged time, obviously. I think this was the game that they've said, look, we've got a cup game coming up. We've got a reserve keeper and put him there. We'll have him until then. I think that was the agreed thing by both clubs. I still wish we'd hang on until the end of the window, until maybe Pope is back, unless they've got a deal to get Trafford in the second he's gone. Who knows what's happening with that? There is a little bit of smoke around Trafford coming back to us in terms of interest, at least. But who knows what's going on with that one? I wish Dubs all the best. He had his critics when he signed for Man United on loan. He got a fair bit of abuse, some of it unjust. Probably a lot of it unjust, to be honest. But his debut, which is quite ironic, because goals are there to win games, and a certain other debutant scored the winning goal in that Man United victory. But I think Dubravka takes away the crown and glory with that one, pretty because the fact that he's a goalkeeper no one had really heard of at the time. He came in, I think he was on loan at first, wasn't
he? Yeah, I think so. Then we signed him in the summer. Yeah,
we got him on loan. Debut, thrown in straight against Man United. He makes some top quality saves in that game. And then little Matty Longstaff goes and gets a winner. So a cracking debut for both of them. But yeah, I think Dubravka, he will always be fondly remembered for that game and many others beyond. He also had some good shouts in the Champions League for as well when Pope was out last season. He's done his time. Time for him to go. And if the fee of £8 million is what the suggested target is, the suggested fee is, then, we've doubled the money off a 36-year-old goalkeeper who's got 6 months left. It's no-brainer, and it's fantastic business for the club and the player as well.
I think 8 million might be a stretch. Like, he's only got a few months left on his contract, so I don't know. But yeah, like there will be a fee attached, I'm sure. I was looking at transfer market before, and we got a loan fee when Man United took him as well. It was about 4
Right,
million
okay.
euros, so there was that as well. I don't think he did himself any favors at that time. He posted himself watching the Man United game and said "watching United" or something like that, you know. So I don't think he probably made a mistake there, but he was very emotional at the end of the game today, and he was in
He
front
was.
of the. And like I said, 171 games. Him and Saint Maximin more or less kept us in the league in those days under Steve Bruce as well. So he was really good for us. And then when Pope came in, we weren't sure if it was going to be Pope or Dubravka. But to have a number two like that, it's really good. So there's a week until the next league game, so we'll see what happens. It would be good to get James Trafford. That seems like it will happen at some point, but I don't know if it will happen in time or Vlak is obviously not trusted. So we don't want to be playing a league game with him, but we'll see what happens. But yeah, we can talk about him again if he does move. But a really good career at Newcastle for him, and he will be fondly remembered, especially after his contribution to this little run. He hasn't had a lot of shots to face because the team has been playing so well, but he's done what he's had to do really well. So good luck to Martin if he does go.
Yeah.
Something else I want to touch on was the 2023 summer transfer window. We had a little bit of a chat about this as well earlier. We're not going to rewrite history about this because a lot of people were justifiably questioning the transfer window last season when we didn't have first team ready players. We didn't know what was going to happen with Tonali and his ban, obviously, at that time. But you look now and we've got Sandro Tonali, Lewis Hall, and Tino Livramento all in the team. The fullbacks are playing for England. Tonali is an Italy starter, and he's been playing brilliantly for us now that we've found that balance with Bruno. Barnes was also signed that summer. He's a threat for the bench. We've already talked about him. Tonali and Hall especially have transformed the way that this team plays. The system is different because we've got Lewis Hall now who can push forward on the left-hand side. It's hard. He's probably the left back most in form in the Premier League, and he's only just turned 20, you know. So I think that transfer window didn't give us what we needed in the immediate short term, which was first team ready players for the Champions League campaign. And then we got smashed with the injuries. But it's good medium to long term recruitment, isn't it? Because look at the impact that those players are having on this team now, and look at the value of those players now.
Yeah, absolutely. It's well scouted for future talent, and we're not looking just to the now. We are looking to the future, and that's where we need to be as well. We can't afford, or we couldn't at the time at least, to go out and buy world class left backs and right backs. So we've got to buy them in young, develop them, and get them to the stage where they can perform consistently at a Premier League level, but also on an international level, because that also just gives the club that little bit extra exposure. Players who are fans around the world are watching, oh, this player looks really cool. I wonder what team he plays for. I might go and support them, that sort of thing. So having other players represent us around the world for their national team is all the better for the club as well. But yeah, I do think Tino and Hall could very well be the best bit of business we've done, maybe along with Isak. And that includes the likes of Bruno and Botman as well. Because Bruno and Botman, as good as they've been, I do think Hall and Tino have that level to go on and be world-class right backs for a good number of years to come. And I'm so chuffed they play for us.
Chelsea selling their best young players. They've got a good history, haven't they, Chelsea, of selling players. Kevin De Bruyne and Mohamed Salah played for them as well before they sold them. So
they want to buy back as well.
Yeah, they really rated Lewis Hall, and their fans were not happy when he left. And when we signed him, he'd only played 4 games at left back. He'd only actually played, so that's why, and that's partly why he wasn't chucked in last season when we were struggling, and when the team played a different system then as well, because Van Burn was the left back and Trippier was the right back, so it was a different system. But I think when you see that recruitment and you think about the medium and long term success of that, you know, you look at players like William Asula, who's can't get a kick at the moment, and you think, what could he be? You know, with 6 months, 12 months of training under Eddie Howe, will he be ready next season to step in? Will he go out on loan? Who knows? But they're at a club with the right manager for them who can develop them, and he's going to put his faith in young players when they're ready and when they can play in the system. And we've got the best 2 pair of probably young fullbacks in in the league, probably. And
Yeah,
I don't
I'd
think
agree with
that's
that.
I don't think that's an outrageous thing to say. So yeah, I just think it's worth looking back at that recruitment for the success it's bringing us right now compared to last season when there were questions about it and when we could have spent our money better in terms of bolstering the first team squad there and then. But it's evidence that the owners have got the club's long-term interests, at heart, and they knew last season was going to be a struggle, and they made a conscious decision to invest in youth, knowing that it was for the long term. And now we're reaping the benefits of it when they've had a year of training under Eddie Howe and when they've settled into the area and the team. And it's amazing to see Lewis Hall and Tino had a really good game today, and especially Tonali as well fitting in there. They've found the balance, like I said, and that's been the key catalyst for this run of form. Long may that continue. It's brilliant. We'll finish up. We'll talk about where we might go from here. We have now got 5 of our next 6 games at St James's Park, and the away game in that run is at Southampton. So this is a real opportunity for us to push on and do something special this season. The season is set up perfectly after this run of wins. Since Brentford, the disappointing game against Brentford, we've won 7 out of 7 games with an aggregate score of 22. And we've just beaten 3 of the traditional Big 6 clubs away from home in a row. I knew that we were going to get better. I trusted that we would. I didn't think we were going to get better to this extent and to go and win 7 games in a row. But it's been remarkable, hasn't it, Craig? It's been absolutely unbelievable to watch. What are your thoughts and reflections on this run now, sitting here right now?
Amazement is one of them because it's not like we've just fluked our way to some victories as well, where it's bouncing off someone's arse in the 93rd minute and we've won it that way. We've actually gone out and we have tortured some of the teams. You look what we've done to Villa. Yes, Villa went down to 10 men, so it probably did make it a little bit easier, but we absolutely destroyed them. Ipswich, we got 4 past. Isak got a hat-trick on there. We put 2 past Man United at Old Trafford. That was comfortable. Spurs, it wasn't as comfortable as, but we still come away with the win. And I think that was the only goal or one of the few goals we conceded within that period of time as well. Arsenal never really looked like scoring today, to be honest, apart from that one shot where they hit the post. Everything else was just a shot from distance, and Havertz couldn't head a ball to save his life by the looks of it. But yeah, it's been a superb run of form. We are back, and we are back better than ever as well. And I'd just like to say, all those people who wanted Eddie Howe out at the beginning of December, late November, where are you hiding now? Because I imagine you're back under that rock waiting for the next bad run of form, because we will drop off. That's inevitable. That's just the way football works. But if we can keep this going for as long as possible, and with this run of games we've got coming up, we could easily consolidate our position in not only the top 5, but even the top 4.
And my big hope from this is that next time we do go through a sticky patch, because we will, because that's football and because it's hard, I just hope that people remember that this is now the 4th time that Eddie Howe has had real questions asked and that he's turned it round. People just have faith in him, like it's fine to ask questions. I think that's absolutely fair. And to criticize when things are going wrong. And, the players and the manager and everybody associated with the club, they are harsher on themselves than anybody support or anyone else could be. They know when things are going wrong and they know that they need to improve things. So it's fine to say that and to ask questions, but it definitely tipped over into, people saying that he should be sacked. And it was mainly a social media thing. I don't actually know if I've met anybody who thinks he should have been sacked, but it was getting louder and louder on social media, and there was problems. But I think everyone can have faith after this run that it will improve and it will get better, because I can't think of anyone who'd be a better manager for our club at this time in terms of his personality, his ability to improve players. He's developing and getting better tactically as well, as has been proven by the fact that we've just gone and won these 3 away games in a row. So yeah, it's just amazing to watch at the moment. We've got, like I said, we've got on paper a bit of a run coming up that we should be able to target and really push on. We will be back after the Bromley game. I think it might be Sunday, so I don't even know if we're going to be able to watch that here in Australia. It might be on beIN Sports or Paramount or
Optus have
something.
now got the FA Cup.
Optus have got it. Excellent. So yeah,
There you go.
that'll be one for us to watch on 1 o'clock on Monday morning or wherever it is. But yes, we will be back after that. It's been a pleasure, Craig, talking to you today.
As always.
Newcastle United on a run, and we will speak to you soon. All the best.
Cheers, mate.
Take it easy.